I am very joyous and feeling incredibly grateful today to be sitting in this space and visiting with Candace Blair. Candace, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate this.
Oh, absolutely. It's an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Absolutely. And it was interesting. We were talking before we started recording, and I really am getting this deep sense today of this feeling like a form of meditation. And so I just want to honor you for being willing to take time out of a busy day and to sit here in this space with me and to have a conversation.
Of course, absolutely. It's nice for us both to slow down, it sounds like, and take this time to be together.
Without a doubt, absolutely. Well, what I'd like to do to start out the conversation, if I could ask you just in general, what your inner journey or what you might call your spiritual journey. I know there's several different names for that. I was going to ask you what that, as well as the work that you're sharing with the world, what those things mean to you at a deeper level.
Absolutely. So, my journey is quite a unique one, and I'll go into it a little bit if it gets too long. Just please feel free to
Oh, no,
interrupt.
no, no. It's all good. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just, I think it's interesting to start a little bit back before my journey began, just to give you a little bit of context. I am from a pretty conservative Southern family, very kind of military background. And so spiritual life in my family's world was definitely around organized religion and going to church. And and that was a pretty beautiful experience. I definitely am a very, very curious person, though. So there were always a lot of questions. I was telling someone last night that I was brought up Methodist, but went to Catholic high school. And one of the nuns was like, I think we're going to take you out of religion class because you have so many questions. Because I didn't have any preconceived notions about what questions weren't appropriate. Like I was like, let's ask everything. I want to know everything about this God and how we connect and about this journey. And so that was a really interesting experience because I did end up having some fabulous conversations with the head nun when I was in high school. But I definitely afterwards kind of was always a seeker. In school, went to a Jesuit school, and one of my favorite classes was called The Problem of God. And it went through all of the different aspects of kind of global religions, organized religion, and spirituality. But I hadn't really found my path, to be honest. And I kind of went forward as we do in American culture in a very driven way. And I have to tell you, I'm not embarrassed, but it is quite funny, the dichotomy between my two lives. I spent 20 years as an investment banker, and it gives me a very interesting perspective based on what I do now. But I was fully immersed in that life. And I have to say, I loved it. I was really doing all of the things that I thought, well, this is what I've been taught is abundance, and this is success, and this will bring me happiness. Now, I knew in the background that I was missing and still seeking for this spiritual connection, but it kind of got put to the side with all of the other things in life was happening. And then what happened? I was in my 40s then, and I started to have really significant back problems. And so what do we know? The body does not lie. And my body started growling at me, and I was really struggling. And I went to see a bunch of different medical doctors, and it was all about prescriptions and things like that. And I was trying to find a healthier way to solve this. And I ended up going to see a healer. Now, when I told you about my background, it was not, I like to call it woo-woo in the least, Jeff. I didn't know what a chakra was. I didn't know that I was made of energy. And I really hadn't been delving into that area. And Sam Kankanamage, an amazing, he's Sri Lankan. I come in and he does all this tapping, and I have all these back problems. And he sits me down at the end and he goes, there's nothing wrong with your back. Your energy is out here. You aren't treating your body like a temple. You haven't taken a breath deeper than your upper chest. You need to go to Kundalini and sound healing. Now,
Yeah.
I disliked yoga so much because it was so slow. We were talking about that. Like, I did not know how to slow down. And I thought, oh God, you're going to send me to yoga class. But Kundalini was perfect for me. And if you don't know too much about it, it's very different than a traditional practice, and it really brings in so many elements. It brings in prana, so you do breath work. It brings in the movement. It usually brings in the gong for sound healing, and we do a lot of chanting. And so I walk into this class and everybody's in their white, and I mean, I have no idea what's going on, but I love it. I love it. And the woman played the gong, and I'm not kidding you. It was the first time, and I guess it was 12 years ago. So I was 40 at the time. My brain just went, oh, wow. And then we chanted, and that is when I got to reconnect. And I walked out of that office, that building. I mean, like chills, like it was so amazing. I walked out into the streets. I was living in London, and I thought, I want to hug everybody. I want to tell everybody. I want to, here it is. Here it is again. And I felt like my whole being was re-energized. And that created a momentum for me within, while I was working 50 hours a week, studying Kundalini, becoming a teacher, learning about sound, vibrational healing. I met the shaman that I ended up training to work to do cacao ceremonies. And within 5 years, I had decided to leave my job and wanted to share this with everyone I possibly can.
Wow, that is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really do deeply honor that. I was going to ask you when you were sharing, at the beginning of what you were speaking of, you were talking about having questions. And so I'm wondering if that is something that you have found has been possibly a theme of your life, from when you were a child and you're as a younger adult. And I was also going to ask you if that has been something that you've sensed ongoing. And I'm wondering if you find yourself where you are right now in your journey. Is it more about living with the questions than possibly having answers?
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, I don't think we ever stop questioning, right? Like, I think inquiry is so important. I think there are so many different aspects of religion, right? So many different types of spiritual journeys. How can you not ask? Some people are so, well, this is the path. I think my thought is anyone who tells me they know the path, I'm like, no, you know the path for you, because there's so many ways in which we can connect with the divine, which we can fill our hearts with that love and light, that we can truly tap into our soul path. So I think a curious mind will allow you to be open to listening. I think we could talk about like what happens in politics. People have lost the ability to listen to one another. And what's amazing, especially I think traveling certainly helps, where you see the way people are living different lives and connecting and finding joy and happiness. So always in inquiry about different paths. But I would say now, living and really trying to live and breathe in that flow, because I'm very confident with that connection, and I'm very mindful of what takes me out of that connection. So my inquiry is more what makes me not feel like I'm in connection. And I think just helping people to be like, ask the questions, but what's in your heart? What is the right path for you to live your truth?
Yeah, thank you so much. And speaking of that, as far as what can take you out of that flow, I'm wondering what it was like for you to discover your being in the midst of that flow, or having those experiences, just getting a sense of if that was revolutionary for you, and I don't know if that would be the right word, just in terms of your energetic experience.
Yeah. So what's interesting, evolutionary, but totally revolutionary. I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm really honest, I mean, I was not living the healthiest lifestyle. I mean, I was your typical stockbroker. I was smoking and drinking, and I was out. It was the 90s, everybody. So,
Yeah.
we did I was not, I felt like I was living a good, kind life, but I was certainly not honoring myself in all the ways possible and taking care of this kind of beautiful vehicle for the soul, nor was I really honoring the importance of that spiritual connection. So as that happened, as I came into that connection, it took me a while. I mean, I had this great kind of cracking open moment, but I think you have to allow yourself the growth and the expansion. And so that was more of an evolution. But I mean, I just noticed how it changed who I surrounded myself with, what I put priorities on, how I treated my body, how much time I allocated then for my spiritual teaching. And it just grew and grew and grew. And, I didn't know at the beginning, I taught my first Kundalini class. I thought, oh, I love this. I was meant to be a teacher. And then you keep going. And for me, it became, I must share this. That was like a deep calling. But I would say the biggest transition, like on the spiritual side, was the dedication to the practice. And then the biggest shift as well was really taking that leap of faith to leave a job, to leave something that I'd been told was like, this is going to sustain me, and having the faith that abundance and I could build another life pursuing this that would be abundant, maybe in a different way. And that was the big revolutionary shift, was that kind of faith.
Yes, and I really do. I have such respect for that. And I was going to ask you too, just to get a sense of what this has been like in terms of your relationship with yourself or with your own being, in terms of discovering, looking at this as possibly as energetic layers, so to speak. Did you find that there was an uncovering of that, as you began to move through this process, if that makes sense?
Yes. Yes. So I would specifically start with, I was definitely living a very masculine, I was tuned in very much to the masculine side, and I'd kind of put aside and even downplayed the joy and the beauty of the feminine. And I think a lot of women my age did. We thought to be successful, we had to walk the manly walk. And I think all of the practices, Kundalini is working with feminine Shakti energy, all of the vibrations, the vibrations of the gong. So really what happened is I was able to shed, say, energetic layers of maybe conditioning, of societal teachings, and start to tune in to the wholeness and the fullness of this kind of soul body, and that there is the masculine and the feminine. But I can honestly say the past 12 years has been a study in rediscovering the power and the beauty of the feminine. If you'd have told me when I was a broker that I would be leading women's circles, and that would be like, I would have been like, or no, and now I'm like, and well, believe me, I love inviting the brothers into the circle, but you really see this, energetically coming back into the wisdom of truly who we are. And I think for me, it's been a study of work in rediscovering the power of the feminine, but also in the equanimity, finding the balance between the two, and really working on that unification of small self, higher self, that we aren't in separation, right? That, I think we think, most of us, we're here, we're in this body. And I think when we start to really connect, that is probably one of the most important energetic connections to maintain that sense of unification and flow, and to realize we are not there's no duality, we're not in separation, and then being able to come into an energetic flow that is consistent, and telling, and carries wisdom. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. And I was thinking too, as you were speaking, I was getting a sense of, the word I might use is primordial energy. And that energy that animates us as living biological beings and also spiritual beings. And I'm wondering if there has been any surprises for you in terms of, the power of our culture in the Western world, to affect our identities and to determine who we think we are and how we, show our face to the world, so to speak. And yet that lives on top of, and I don't know if that's the right preposition or not. Living on top of it, or kind of superimposed upon it. Or it's superimposed upon this energy that has always been here and continues to be here.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I'm going to go back to the Kundalini because I say this at the beginning of all my classes. And for those who don't know, Kundalini energy is an inherent Shakti energy in all men and women. It's a feminine energy, the destroyer, the creator. And when children are born, like the concept is, we know children when they're babies, they're so connected. They're in such an amazing state of flow. So if you don't have a traumatic birth, it's really that just amazing connection, right? And throughout the course of our lives, we take on things. I think a lot of us don't know really how to protect ourselves energetically, particularly empaths who I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel for you in kind of taking on this collective energy, on this heavy energy, but we take on emotions, and we block them down. And I think it's interesting because we take on things that are in our society, but society also tells us not to express them or to manage them really. And then we have really the way that we're supposed to be, like in our generation, it was, maybe be seen, not heard. I think women had some extra things in there that were laid upon us. And so the goal and particularly in Kundalini is to work to use that energy to help break through blocks and to get back into that beautiful state of flow and connection. And I teach a channeled methodology called the Alchemy of Becoming, which is all about raising consciousness. And what's fascinating about that process is it's based on the belief, the understanding that all of us walking this planet have been born into a consciousness of fear, but that is shifting. But we can we're being given an unprecedented opportunity to get ourselves into a higher state of consciousness, not just by the natural shift and moving of kind of what's happening kind of dimensionally on the planet, but that we are actually being given some tools in a variety of different ways to raise our consciousness. And this particular methodology focuses first on working through inherited and acquired trapped emotions that are keeping you in lower consciousness or keeping you in fear, so that you can have the tools to come back into a place of love and into connection. And I think that's just the most fabulous, because you start to see people rising into this place of love and really starting to try and live with not just compassion for self, compassion for others, seeing where they are on their journey and really trying to uplift rather than to stay in this depressed state.
Yeah, that's I love that. And I was going to ask you also, one of the currents that seems to be running through this conversation is about being more fully human. And I don't know if that's the right way for me to express that, but I'm wondering, just in terms of, your journey thus far, if there have been any surprises or any revelations in terms of your being human as a result of undertaking these various practices and sharing these with others.
Yes. So I think I love the term like living our individuated divinity, but that we are all human and divine. And I think for a long time, I was just really in my human body. Even if I believed that there was this soul in there, I wasn't living in that human and divinity. And so I think that's one of the first things, is people realizing that this is an amazing vehicle that we have to take care of in this incarnation. But we really, but it's so important to honor that this soul light within us, and that we use this being to traverse this earthly plane, but that really it is there to be the expression of there to carry you to share the light that's inside, right? And really coming into that authentic truth. And I think we come into authentic truth when we can come into connection with our higher consciousness, into our hearts, and kind of honor that mind, body, spirit. Now, for me, the biggest lesson and revelation has been that I was very cerebral, and everything had to be explained, right? So you can't figure it all out, right? And the emotions get in the way, and it's not all, it's not all data points. So I think the biggest lesson, like, was, oh, this body does not lie to me. This body tells me when things are out of alignment. And it's interesting, I'll even say this today. So my back is what got me to my first appointment with Sam. And I haven't had any back problems until about 2 weeks ago. And I've been running at full steam, not necessarily honoring my need to refresh and reboot, and kind of knowing that I think there's a lot of big shifts happening. And it's amazing. My body's like, oh, no, 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 no. You were going to sit down, Missy. and it is I think I do a body scan now every day to be like, what are you saying to me? What do I need to listen to? So I think the physical body acting as an agent of wisdom, acting as this teller of things, but also, Jeff, I would say it's allowing the body to rest, to connect. So we were talking about that meditation, that rest. Learning, probably one of the biggest things for me was learning to stop and listen. So using the body to feel, but also how important it is to still the body in this world that we want to go, 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 but to still the body to listen and receive.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad you've spoken to this, because I am musing about just the the power of stopping. And I'm just thinking about today as an example. And I know that everyone has their own version of moment to moment, day to day, so to speak. But just thinking about all of the things that I could mentally bring into this space with me, and any concerns that I may, just human concerns that I may have, and doubts and misgivings. And what I find so incredibly powerful is that to recognize that even if there are those things happening in my head, I'm wondering anything you would speak to just in terms about being able to be present.
Absolutely. We are really in alignment today. So I was just say one thing I do before every practice in Kundalini. It's a little practice called giving it up to God, or giving it up to the divine, obviously, whatever that means for you. And so before we tune in, and that's kind of like opening up a channel to higher consciousness, I have everyone take their hands to their heart in a lotus cup, and I invite them, because, so many times in meditation, they're like, think of it like clouds floating away. And people are like, it's not that easy. Like, more people are like, I can't, they're not clouds, they're real concerns. And so I invite everyone to, when they close their eyes, to go to the activity in the brain, to highlight, to like literally pinpoint, what is it that you're worried about? What in the past, what old stories? I really do a lot of work on helping people to drop the old stories, because I think we are really being called to honor who we are, what we've learned, and let's go forward with the wisdom.
Yeah.
But taking the worries, the concerns, taking the to-do list, taking the burdens that we carry, acknowledge them, place them in the cup, and then let the energy. I mean, I guess you want to ask me about what one of the biggest surprises was, that this heart field is so much bigger than the head field, because
Yes. Oh, yeah.
yeah. But let the energy, we've been taught this is the command center. No, this is the command center. And let that energy come down. And so I just invite people during meditation or for class, I'm like, listen, give it up to God. Then clear your field and let yourself just be in present awareness for, an hour, 30 minutes. And you can come back, you'll get it back. You can worry about it later if you want to, but maybe you won't want to after meditation.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you've spoken to this. And I was going to ask you too, I know that you've spoken about listening, and that is something that has come through very strongly to me as I'm hearing you share about your experiences with that. And what I'm wondering is, do you find that it also enables the ability to, if one is open to it, to actually more fully feel what they're feeling, and recognizing that there can be this tendency to want to resist feeling what we're feeling? That is also, I get a sense that's also human as well.
I mean, absolutely. So many of us kind of stuff down our emotions, and it's, as we're listening, or say combining the body scan, right? Like, okay, well, so this is where I'm carrying tension, acknowledging what's bringing it there. And you're so right. We can't just do the body, because what is it that animates us? It's the emotions, it's the feelings, and they are things we're meant to feel them. I sometimes, and I think many people do, we get going so much that we kind of push them to the side. And I just think that that's one thing that we've learned. Well, that's going to come back. Like we really do need to, even for a brief moment, acknowledge it. But I will tell you, I find the most fascinating thing is when you start to identify what it is and say, well, oh, why am I feeling a little bit jealous? Why is that hurting my feelings? And so many things will come back to, oh, this has nothing to do with anyone else. This is about my self-worth, or this is about, my concerns about how others are receiving me, or, it's an insecurity. And the wisdom that comes from acknowledging why you're feeling it and when, and, if you can't do it exactly in the moment, there is so much to be learned from the emotions that rise, right? And so what a cool teacher. Like, you are, that body and those feelings are your own teacher. And I think they help you so much to really come into who you are authentically. And I'm not sure if this has kind of been coming up for you a lot with your crew and with your tribe here, but this need to be authentic, and helping people to understand you don't need to be like anyone else, and really everyone doesn't have to like you. Like, I like to think of it like the mirrored disco ball, right? If we're all this kind of fractal of light of the divine, how whatever that means for you, you're meant to shine that light so uniquely. And we think we have to be like someone else or live up to someone else's standards. And it's so amazing when you see people starting to really come into, like, no, I trust myself implicitly, and this is how I want to be. And it's amazing how that settles a lot of emotions, which might be in a little bit of chaos or turmoil, because it becomes very grounded and very clear.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That resonates. That really does. And I'm wondering now, I wasn't even intending to speak about this, but yesterday, it may have been the day before yesterday, there was just this intuitive bubbling up of, and I'm going to try to do my best to make this as concise as possible. But I love how you were just speaking about that, all of this human stuff about, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be liked, wanting to be the way we think that other people want us to be. What came through to me in the middle of the night, I awoke, and what was coming through was exploring the what is beyond what it is that I think about myself and what my limits are, and what actually is beyond my own beliefs about who I think I am, and how I hold that in my body, so to speak.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you come to a conclusion on it? Because I mean,
Thank you for asking. And that's one of those that I feel like that it was almost as if it was that, even though it didn't come through as a question, I'm sensing that it's providing it and a point for inquiry. But have not really received any answers as of yet. It's almost as if I find myself just being open to what is beyond that, and not necessarily, and knowing maybe at some point there's something will come through, but I'm finding that it's just that openness
yeah.
to that, and not knowing
And
if there are any answers to those questions. Yeah.
Well, I think it's cool because we've talked about the body and the connection. And so I think what's super cool is, right, we get ourselves into this space where we're grounded in the human body, but we're connected, right? The human and divine. And what I love the concept of is, as we rise up in consciousness, what we're able to access is greater, right? So, when we're in fear, we can't access as much. But as you start to rise up in consciousness, I mean, this is my belief too, there is so much out in the field, right? And there really is, there there are endless possibilities and potential. And I find that so incredibly exciting. But how can you know what is right? And like, I feel like you have to get good with this to get on the right path with all of this, right? Because like, you want to access things in your truth, because if you're accessing this information and higher consciousness in a place of love, in a place of connection and divinity, in a place of authenticity, then you're going to be able to make the right decisions, and you're going to be coming into contact with the things that are going to help guide you on the way. And I have to say, if there's one thing I like to share with people, it is, please have faith that the path will be lit. If you are intentional and you are really trying, and you take that leap of faith, it is amazing to me how the path is lit. Now, you might make, I'm not saying I do not always make the right decisions. I mean, I feel like you kind of come to a fork in the road. You have a couple of options. We hope we choose the highest. We're human. We are human. I mean, this is a work in progress, Jeff.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
But I want to try as hard as I can to access those unlimited possibilities. So continuing to do the work, continuing to be in inquiry and listening, it's pretty amazing, like what all is available. And I think the physical body is getting upgraded too. Like, I feel like we're all needing to nourish and care, because our bodies weren't made to hold the consciousness available to us right now. So how do we nourish this body so we're not depleted, so that we can be in this higher vibration?
Oh, absolutely. And excuse me, I was thinking just about early in my journey, and I can still find myself there sometimes now. I love how you're speaking about in terms of being present with, with our physical body, with our physical being. And then as our consciousness rises, that we're able to access these things that you speak of. And I found myself sometimes being so focused on trying to access all that all that is out in the field, that it was almost like, in a way, like, I don't know if I'd use the word bypassing, but it was just really kind of a focus on where I wanted to be, only to be reminded that coming back here, so to speak, and being present.
Well, I think a lot of people have that. I'm definitely a very much in my human body, but I work with a lot of people who are very empathic, or who are really in the upper ethers, and they've been, and I find it's a hard place. That's a hard place to be, because this earthly space can be shocking and frightening and filled with so many inputs. And it's, what's interesting for me is I believe as I raise in consciousness, I've become more empathic, and I'm like, oh, you guys have it. This is a heck of a journey. And I think it's finding that balance. If you are up here having to do the embodiment practices, I always tell people, God, dance, just like get into even if you're not a good dancer, dance. That's why I like Kundalini. We do it with our eyes closed, right? It's like no one's watching. Bringing spirit into your body and letting it animate you, and being, we have to be here. We're meant to be here. We have chosen. I mean, I believe our souls have chosen to be here for this crazy adventure at the most amazing time on the planet. So don't wish it all away by spending all the time like, connect. Yes, but the wisdom is what are you supposed to do with it right here, right now? Because we'll have plenty of time, in that upper space. So it's getting the wisdom, but then living it in this space. And that's what I really believe, that because our souls have chosen this, like, we're here. So, you got to shine your light, find your truth.
Oh, absolutely. And I think about all of the, and not that I'm aware of all of them, but so much of the traditions in the eastern part of the world, as well as so many indigenous traditions, that wisdom of everything that you've spoken of being here, being in our bodies, being present, and being open to what there is beyond that, that it really does, in a lot of ways, feels very revolutionary. It really does.
And I think, Jeff, as well, the other part of that grounding down is also the work that we have to do on this planet, right? Like, Mother Earth needs us. Like you talk about the indigenous, and I've worked with a couple of different shamans, North American traditions and South American traditions. And, this reconnection with the wisdom of nature, the elemental wisdom, the wisdom of plants. I work a lot with ceremonial cacao and, teaching people plants have masculine and feminine. Plants carry wisdom. Plants can open your heart, like it can connect you to the earth. And teaching people that we have so many tools here, and let's learn how to share and utilize them and protect those resources while we're here on this planet,
Oh, absolutely. And that just being connected to it all. Yeah, I love that. And I also did want to ask you, and I definitely look forward to hearing what you feel moved to share, just in terms of, if there was an aha moment, or just where you found yourself feeling moved to begin to teach these various modalities, and just anything you might speak of about what that journey has been like for you sharing this with others.
Yes. I mean, I think if it weren't for Sam, like it was it took a while. When I had that aha moment coming out of that first class, I was so excited because I thought, wow, okay, I've really felt the fullness of a spiritual connection for the first time in a long time. And, I kept going back, and 6 months later, Sam asked me, I think you should, if you're so fascinated by this, I think you should study. And I thought, well, I can't do that. And, work all this. And he's like, oh, you'll find a way. Right. And what was amazing, I found a way. And so first lesson, if you really are drawn to something and your heart is feeling passionate about it, you can find a way. You can make time. Right? You can. And you just have to dig deep enough. Like it has to be, I say to people often that I'm coaching, if you can't find 5 minutes of time in your day to meditate, you need to look at the other what you're doing the rest of the day. But I would say that was the first aha is, wow, when it's in your heart, you can make time. And then when I started teaching, I loved sharing, but the big lesson that came from that was during my teacher training, because I was older than everyone. I thought like everyone was looking at me like the bad banker, like I was like, I didn't know anything. Like, I mean, I didn't know I said I didn't know what a chakra was. I was like, what are you talking about? But I had to get over that imposter. It took me probably many years to get over that imposter syndrome, because I thought people would not, I didn't have a lineage of spirituality, and I didn't, it's actually kind of an interesting point, because I think what comes from that is when I first started too, I thought, oh, I have to dress a certain way, or I have to speak a certain way. And it took me a while, like I swung the other way, because I didn't want to be the bad old banker lady. I wanted to be the Kundalini spiritual person. And it took me a while to find like, oh, no, this has to be expressed through you and your uniqueness, and that you have both a view of both sides is what you bring. And some people may not like it. And I had to get really okay with that. And I think that's one of the hardest things that I know most of us go through. Like, I was so excited to share it that I wanted everyone to love it. And I wanted everyone to love me. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. And they, and not everyone did. And it took a while to just go, you're the both and like, this is, and honestly, if I try and be one way completely, it's not authentic to me. It doesn't feel authentic. I'm not in my heart. We're multi-dimensional and multifaceted. And I think we have to honor that. So that was certainly a big lesson. And the other kind of key component for me was to, I think in every area, whether you're a doctor, you use certain words. I saw that as a banker, like everyone likes to use their words, and we kind of put ourselves up here like, I'm the wise one and I'll teach you. It is very important for me, and I would say the biggest moment happened because of me being that older teacher, is making sure that everyone feels that they have a space at the table. If I'm saying I have to honor my individuated divinity, I have to honor every single person and their lesson. And realizing that everyone sitting next to you has an amazing story, an amazing gift. Maybe they haven't tapped into it yet. Maybe you can help, but to never make anyone feel lesser than simply because they're at a different place on the journey than you are, right? It's like, I'm going to learn from your experience. If I want people to honor mine, and that I think has been the biggest lesson, is seeing everybody like just as their soul spark, right? Wherever they are, whatever they're doing, wherever they're from, and trying to teach that, because we get so caught up in what everybody looks like, what they have in front of their name. And it's really, it's what's there.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Thank you so much. And I was also going to ask you, as you reflect on your journey as a teacher, what I wanted to also ask you is, thinking about not any specific students, but just getting a sense of maybe where you have seen students really have that opening and that transformation. If I could ask what that's been like just overall for your heart, soul, and spirit to see people
Amazing.
come into their own.
Amazing. I mean, I think that's just the greatest moment ever. I mean, I think when you're doing things authentically and you're shining your light, right? People are going to know. And I think people are drawn to that, right? And then when they realize that they have exactly that sparkle in their own unique way, and they start to make decisions honoring that, and you see them starting to make those choices. And I don't think there's anything better. I have a group of about 40 students that I'm currently coaching, and watching them. I think one of the coolest things is watching them realize how much all of their talents, like, and that, oh wait, I can connect, I can channel, I can listen, I have guides, or whatever it is, or just I'm okay being on my own, or I can go travel, any of the things that they find. But just this real independence and freedom in being uniquely who they are, I don't even have words. It's just magic.
Wow, that is beautiful, and I wonder too. Do you get a sense that this is them actually experiencing your energy that is possibly independent of you as a human being, as a personality, as an identity? That is some of this. Do you get a sense that some of how you have affected others has just been your creating that container to hold this energy and to shine that out into the world? If that makes sense.
It does. And I'm going to say, okay, I think that my energy might attract people in. However, it is not my energy that keeps them in. I don't think anyone has the ability, and that's not my job. My job is to hold space for them to shine their light. So I am happy if my light radiates out and draws people in. But I'm very clear, this is not about people coming in and working with this is about teaching you to work with your energy and radiating that light out. Because I don't think, it's gotta be discovering your own field. It can't be bringing me into yours, right? We're all responsible what's in our field. And I think we all know too, if somebody is just trying to take that energy and not work on themselves, I would say that's a no, right? Like that's where we
Yeah.
put boundaries and say, hey, this is, I'm very protective of my energy. That's an important thing. But when I expand that out, when I'm teaching, when I'm sharing, absolutely. But it is to share the tools to help people find that unlocking, to find that flow. And what I want people to do is to understand, the more you radiate your light, the more impactful you'll be for your family, for your community. So we do a lot of work on, getting that vibration out working on having a vital, strong field, and then knowing when you want to shine it out. And I spend a lot of time kind of with my field really close and tight, doing my studies and things like that. So it's strong when it goes out, but I really want that energy, Jeff, to be radiated. That's from individually. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I really do honor your willingness to, to be open to that and to ultimately provide people with this space where they, as you say, where they can discover their light, so to speak, and how
Yeah.
to let that shine and how to express who they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, Jeff, the one thing too is the way that I do it is definitely not going to be for everyone. Like I do a lot of collaborations. Like I find people I'm kind of a connector, right? So I have friends who do iridology, who do the herbalists, and so the way I feel is I kind of have this amazing community. And when I meet someone new where they're drawn in, it's not like, oh, Kundalini sound and cacao, that's the way. It's what resonates with you. And hey, I've
Yeah.
got all these people, if you want to try whatever resonates with your heart, because the key is the folks that I'm seeing that are making these really big shifts, they're uncovering their magic potion, what they'll make time for. And it's not, nobody's doing, I'm not, not doing the Candace, like that's my foundation, and as much as that can help people to unlock or open the path, like I know when I first started, it was like, oh my gosh, it was like a whole new world. Like, and I had great teachers who were like, you can go have cacao and you can do this. And I was like, really? I didn't even know. And so that's kind of what I want to do is keep it simple and not simple, but keep it open and keep it egalitarian and keep it where it's just like, here are all the tools. I just happen to know a lot of people who do really cool stuff, and
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Absolutely, and I just honor you for showing up because I know that ultimately is where it starts, right? That's yeah, yeah. I think that's all the questions that are bubbling up, so to speak. I did want to take a few moments though and give you a little bit of space and time if there's any questions I have not asked that were meant to be asked, or if there's anything you feel moved to share beyond what you have spoken of, and no expectations on that. I just wanted to give you a little bit of room, should that be the case, possibly.
yeah, I mean, the only thing I would really say that about what I'm feeling called at this time, in terms of teachings, is really inviting people to look at the stories that they're carrying, and honoring the things in the past that obviously can't be changed, even the hard things, as pieces of wisdom that build into the unique experience that they're supposed to have. Because I really feel there's a call right now to get people to own their own experience. And if they can own that, then they can be present and then they can step forward in more authenticity. And I know it's not overnight, right? Like none of this occurs overnight. It might be revolutionary, but we know it's evolutionary, right? So
Yeah.
just if you can find, I would say be curious, try new things, but go with people who resonate with you, and also people who aren't trying to tell you that their way is the only way. I'm just very, I think being discerning is really important, but also if you can just try and tap in every day to just being authentically who you are. I know quite a few people who have this magical spiritual being inside of them, but they don't feel that they can express it as a mother or to their husband or to their family or at their job. And they feel very repressed in a way. And it's like, I would invite everyone to find a way every day to just be authentically you and let that start to grow. It can be baby steps as we kind of uncover and peel back the onion, but just start trying to connect. And even if it's in silence, doing the meditation, but being authentic and finding ways to just radiate that out, because eventually it will come into wholeness.
Wow, thank you so much. I deeply honor everything that you've shared, your energy, your presence, and your words and your experience. It means the world. And I can't thank you enough for that. And on a human level, it's been nice to meet you as well. I really appreciate you taking this time. And I'll get with you afterwards. I definitely want to make it as easy as possible for people who would like to connect with you. So I'll be glad to get any information that you would like to include with this conversation, so that that will be available. Thank you again. I really
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much. I appreciate it too. Thank you all.
Absolutely.